Movies can have a lasting impression on you and bring back great memories. Certain images you will always remember. Things that have been with me all my life and keep getting added to with every movie I see.
I will turn this place into the fucking Wild Bunch if I think you are fucking with me.
18th phone home.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Welcome to My Cellular Heart Podcast, Season 4, Episode 176. This is the end of our podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Duke, and I am here with...
his cousin Chip. Hello, everybody.
And I'm also here with...
his backdoor boy, Jason Bromley.
You know it. You're supposed to not let that... What if my wife hears this? My wife won't hear it.
I want your wife to hear it so that she can watch us both.
I do have a question, though. Why aren't you doing this podcast recording in your new hot tub?
Because then I got to haul this desktop to, and then get Alexa.
Just do it on your phone, like have your laptop or your iPad as your notes, and then just zoom through your phone.
And yelling over the bubbles. I said it's only... Yeah.
Well, that, and we get to watch you like pass out from being too hot and just fall into the...
Trust me. So my wife, just real quick, is some house cleaning, whatever. Don't matter. I was going to paint this room. I didn't paint the room, whatever. Fuck it. I'll paint it later. I just had to, anyway, threw away all my posters. So in the hot tub, she goes, I'm giving you 20 minutes because you passed out before. I passed out with her. I passed out 2 or 3 times. I think twice. And one time, I've told you guys, I told the audience, I was taking a leak. I wake up, I'm lightheaded, but I'm like, I got to take a leak. Taking a leak. I go, oh shit, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Let me finish the stream. And then all of a sudden, next thing, and then I go, and then I'm going to sit on the side of the tub. Next thing I know, boom, I'm being pulled by one leg by my wife out the bathroom. And I'm like, honey, what's going on? What are you doing? She goes, you fucking passed out. I go, no, I didn't. She goes, look at yourself. I look down. My pants are fucking around my knees. Got my dick out. I'm like, oh shit. When did that happen? So she's like,
you could have cut out the middleman and actually sit down to pee. When you're like, I got to finish this stream. You probably could have just sat down and just went, okay, now just in case.
Opposite of what Jason said, I'm a real man. And I was like, no, I got to stand to pee. If my dad knew that I sat to pee, my dad would be very mad that I sat to pee. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I pointed out to my wife when she was sitting there going, so if you like, because I'd been having problems and stuff with dizziness there for a little bit.
Welcome to the Old Man Podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of pointed out to her, I said, yeah, but see, I'm kind of secure that I will sit the fuck down now because I'm fucking old and standing up and my knees and shit and working all fucking day. I'll fucking sit to pee. And she was like, okay.
How dare you? He was born 4 years before you. And now that's what he has to look forward to in 4 years. His knees are shot.
I'm 44 right now, and I've been sitting to pee for 10 years.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go then. You're way ahead of it. You cut out the middleman right away.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. My dick sprays all over the place. If I want to have pants, one pair of pants per day, I have to sit.
That's true. Very true. All right. Sorry. Let's get to listener opinions. We got our friend Tim Martin, writer, director, producer, sometimes podcaster. He wrote, quote, listening to and being a part of My Cellular Heart podcast has been a joy these last few years. I found out about the show from the Movie Chatter podcast crew and started listening while Phillip was covering the James Bond series. I reached out to him, and it has been such a joy to be on the show 5 times. As well as being on the show, it was always great sending in thoughts to Phil to read on the show and talk to him outside the show. Getting and giving film recommendations and discussing anything film, I also have to mention, period. Sorry. So run-on sentence, Phillip. Come on. I also have to mention and truly appreciate the support Phillip and Chip have given to promoting the films myself and my team have made. So happy to be a part of the My Cellular Heart family and look forward to Phil and Chip's newest show. Hope to be a part of it. And remember, quote, to keep watching movies that live forever in our heads and hearts. So the shows that him and I did, we did Yojimbo and for a few dollars, a fistful of dollars. And then we did City Lights and Modern Times. And then Arsenio was on and we just did like a for the love of film thing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Well, that's a good one. It's good that he came in
Mhm.
during the Bond stuff because you're so passionate about the Bond movies
Mhm.
that probably just hooked it right away. It's like, I'm going to listen to this guy.
Well, and before that started, I was at Jason's house and Jason's like, "You got some new project that you're starting on your podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be doing all the James Bond movies." He's like, "Oh man, that sounds like fucking horrible." And I was like, "Yeah, it should be fun." And it was horrible. But luckily, should I say luckily, COVID happened. And then I was like, "Oh, now I got more time." I was gonna be doubling those up every week to work up to No Time to No
Yeah,
Time to Die.
you were stressing out about that. I remember that.
So,
Yeah.
but that's that. What about you, Jason? You got a favorite that you might have listened to? He listens to every once in a while. I try to listen to all of his. The only one I haven't listened to of his was the Dutch girl, the Dame girl, whatever. It was a Western with Robert Pattinson, I think,
The
in it.
Damsel.
The Damsel.
And that's a damn good movie. Like, why the fuck didn't you watch that one?
That's what I hear. I was like, is it free? No, I gotta buy it. Fuck that. Yeah. I'm like you, Jason. I'm like, no, I don't torrent. So
Hey, there's nothing wrong with torrenting. I'm not saying I do it, but ahoy, motherfuckers. No, like I enjoy listening to your podcast, and I'm not gonna lie, like when I need to relax is when I listen to you and Chip because your voices are almost, I mean,
Make him sleep.
it relaxes me.
Okay.
Right.
Not necessarily sleep, but yeah, no, I didn't start smoking weed till I was 40, but going out and smoking some weed and listening to you guys talk is just warms my heart.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Yeah, he was on last week and he was like, I'm not as sexy as Chip. Chip's voice is sexy. And I'm like, oh yeah, he does that Autobots transform. And you're like, oh shit.
Mhm.
Oh shit, Chip, let's hear it. I've been hearing about this, but I've never heard it.
I hate being put on the spot like this. All we need now is a little bit of energon and a lot of luck.
There you go.
Wow. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yep. That was probably the best of all of it. That sounded like Peter, whatever that guy's name is. Cullen.
That guy's old as fuck, so somebody's gonna have to take over.
Yeah. There you go. Chip will do it. It's probably my voice has always been, it's funny. When my old friend, she used to be like, come in here into the bedroom and tell me a story. Because I'd be talking. I'd be talking.
Are we gonna go there tonight?
I mean, no, it was totally. I'd be like, all right, on, and she'd be like, talk to me, and I'd be like, so anyway, when I was 3, and she'd be like, oh my god, and she'd fall asleep because my stories are boring and my voice is just like droning on like white noise. So, so every time it'd be like I'd keep talking. It was like at your house when you were like, we're not doing a show, dude. I'm falling asleep on the couch. You're fucking rambling to my wife. My wife's gonna go to bed. We're all going to bed. Like, just go home. So it was like that. My friend would be like, well, then let's move it to the bedroom. All right.
Oh, yeah, that's a good stuff.
Like, so
what you should have done
anyway-
is pulled a True Lies and used Chip's voice, but then you were like in the room, and he's like,
There you go.
slower, baby.
Do it dusimo. Do it slowly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That would have worked. She would have been like, well, now I'm wide awake. Where'd Phillip go? Who's this stranger in my room?
For such a deep voice, you've got such a little dick.
So wow. So then it was funny about the voice, because then my friend Brant, who used to work at the radio station being a DJ and all this stuff at KSLX on the weekends, and I get there to do the show. He's like, man, you got the voice for radio. I'm like, really? It sounds to me like I'm just like people when they're like, I hate my voice. Now I'm used to it, but I'm just like, because you edit and you're like, I guess that's my voice. But then there was a time when Jason's like, you sound like you're all stuffed up and you sound like fucking shit. Your show's fucking horrible. And I was like, oh, thanks. I just went to the doctor and they said that I have a deviated septum. So I have to have surgery. And he's like, thank God I don't have to listen to that anymore. And so then I got that fixed. And then he was like, oh, sounds better. Sorry to
I sound
point
like a
out
real asshole in all your stories.
oh, trust me. No. No. It's funny with Jason because he's so nice here. But if you were out, like he's a guy that you and I, Chip, would be like, we're not getting in that fight. He'd be like, you guys are with me, right? And we'd just be like, no. And he'd be getting his ass kicked while he's trying to. Somebody pulled in front of him in traffic or didn't turn on their signal. He'd be like, motherfucker, I'm gonna that signal up his ass. You're like, wow.
And now all I heard in my head was from what was it, House Party, where it's like, yeah, we got your back, way back.
Yeah. Did you know did you see that they're redoing House Party? They put out a trailer for this. It's like a redo of House Party, but no kid and play. No kid.
Say that, fuck that noise.
Yeah.
If there's no kid and play, and if there's not the two big buff guys, or and the little dude is like, why don't you shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
Then no.
And the father was the main thing of that whole thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But anyway, my favorite things on the show that we've done. When I started, I was telling Jason this last week. When I started, I was like, I'm gonna do Touch of Evil, Out of Sight. I'm gonna talk about about how they're trying to do an AI acting thing, like they're trying to put actors like James Cameron, but they're doing something else. I was like, I'll talk about that. I'll talk about what's streaming and what's new and all this stuff, and I'll do everything. I'll watch Hulu, I'll watch Netflix, and that second episode, I was like, fuck that. I'm gonna do 2 movies and some facts about it. Like that'll be good enough. And well, then it was 3 movies. And then I remember going, I'm gonna drop down to 2 movies an episode. And Chip was like, how about just like 2 was good? Like, yeah, that's good. And then when I told my friends, they were like, well, yeah, duh. Like 3 is too many. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea. And because our shows would last 2 hours of 3 fucking movies. Then after 2 shows, then I was like, okay, let's do 1 and 1 and they'll be connected. So yeah. And then I did those 4 Stars Born episodes, which I was very proud of because I put a lot of work into it. And those first 2 were kind of boring, or no. Yeah, no. 1 and 3 were boring. Like I don't like Chris Christopherson much. I'm trying to get to like him more. And the original was like, but anyway, I didn't want to walk through this whole thing, but Chip and I did Brothers, Cousins, and Friends. That was our first episode. Boondock Saints, which now, Jason, I need your honest opinion. So
fucking hate Boondock Saints.
So Jason has this thing. Here's the thing. I'm going to let it out here because nobody will hear it. Yeah, Chip left. So I'm listening to this episode of Jason's podcast about The Dark Knight. And Jason's talking about how much he hates it. I think I told you about this, Chip. He's talking about how much he hates this fucking movie. And I'm like, what? And he's got his friend Brian on. And Brian's like, no, it's fucking the best movie ever. It's got everything winds into itself. He goes, no, it's fucking bullshit. They should have blown up both of the boats. They should have done this. That fucking Heath Ledger, he's overrated. Like, fuck this shit. And I'm like, he can't be serious. And I'm listening and I'm like, I don't think he's serious because I think we've talked about The Dark Knight. And then I write him and I'm like, dude, really? And he's like, no, man, that was just to get Brian going. Brian had no idea. Brian's getting super fucking pissed, ready to fucking end the podcast. He's like, no. So
he was gonna end the podcast. He was gonna fight me, dude. Like he was gonna brawl me in the kitchen. And then the last 5 minutes, I was like, I'm just fucking with you. I don't really hate the movie that much. And he was like, you're a piece of shit. So again, I sound like a fucking asshole in all of your stories. Apparently, maybe I am.
No, I don't think so. But no, you're a nice guy.
There's another story.
Family man.
That doesn't make you a nice guy.
Oh, I guess not. Yeah. Look at who's that black guy
Bill,
on?
Bill Cosby was a family man.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Are you feeding people drinks? You're like, so you're telling a kind of opening the curtain now, and you're like, do you want
I'm
something?
gonna
to drink?
10 bar tonight.
That's why when I come over right away, he's in the kitchen. Like, you want something to drink? Yeah.
Yep. Don't
Like,
ever
wait
take
a
an open
minute.
drink from me.
Exactly. But
But yeah, no, like when I was doing the school newspaper in high school, and of course I got put on as like the movie reviewer, and then they put this other dude that I used to argue with movies about all the time, put me and him to like go see movies and shit. And the school actually paid for us to go see movies for a little while. It was
Cool.
awesome.
Yes.
But they had just re-released Star Wars in the theater with the added shit put into it.
Mhm.
And so for my movie review, I tore the shit out of Star Wars. And like I had every fucking nerd. Like most kids are like being beat up by the football team. I
Yeah.
had like the nerd squad coming after me. Like the whole band hallway emptied out and came after me.
and that was before people go, oh yeah, those are shit. Like, give us
Right,
the
exactly. They
original.
were just
Yeah.
so excited because they were
Yeah.
back out in the theaters. And yeah, I fucking love Star Wars. Everybody knows I love Star Wars, but I'd shit
Yeah.
all over it just to get a reaction.
Yeah. Oh. But yeah, well, the whole Job of the Hutt thing, that just threw, like, anyway. But yeah, so we did those. I had Joe Merle on. We did Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs. That was one where on his show he was like, we recorded for like 2 hours and 30 minutes or something. And Phil was like, oh my God, like what the fuck? And I know that off mic, he was like, yeah, it was fucking brutal. Like he wouldn't stop talking. He had 25 facts alone just about Silence of the Lambs. So
I didn't know you when I heard that one, and I
Mhm.
seriously thought maybe there's something wrong with you because you were like super obsessed with Ed Gein and like how he like cross-dressed and wore women's boobies and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? Like Joe's funny, but this other guy's being a little too in love with it.
Now who's an asshole? Here's what's funny with that. When you first meet people, like you're not sure of the jokes, how to run jokes. That's why Jason opened up with a joke right away when we got on here. But it was the thing with Joe Merle when I go, Joe, I had never met him before in person. I had texted him. So when he gets on the show, I'm like, you seem like a guy that would be good at making shit in your garage, like nipple cords for your window or like bone couches. And he's like, no, that's fucking sick and crazy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know, of course. And then later I'm like, I'm real sorry. He's like, no, like to him it was nothing. He just blew it off. To me, I'm like in my head now going, oh fuck, like I just called him a crazy Ed Gein type. So yeah, it was a thing of it was also when he was on we did Moonraker on the James Bond thing. And I was like, oh, the bad guy from Moonraker is like an adult Peter Dinklage. And I just said it just to be funny. And he was like, you're a fucking asshole. Or no, you fucking idiot. And we laugh. And my buddy Brant goes, oh my God, like if I were to say that, it wouldn't come off right. It would come off that I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, he goes, but for some reason when he says it, it was okay. And I'm like, well, yeah. It's just like you, Jason, be an asshole. You're an asshole, Jason.
I'm totally an asshole. I love it.
So anyway, then Chip got to see The Town and Rope for the first time. That was exciting for me. Chip had never seen The Town. 2010, he didn't see The Town or Inception. So then he was like, that Town, that was a good movie. I'm like, yeah, I've been telling you.
For years.
That Ben Affleck should try to do acting sometime. Then my dad was on. We did Revenge Pictures. So Jason and I talked about dads. Chip's dad, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But would you rather have, now, Chip, I don't mean to offend you. I don't think I am. Would you rather have not a dad in the world right now, or a dad who only calls you to tell him about himself like yours does and mine does? I was talking to my dad the other day, and he's like, oh shit, I gotta go get some Pabst Blue Ribbon because that's the cheapest beer. It's got higher alcohol content. Like he reads all that. So he's like, I got to go across the street and go get that, or wherever down the street. And I'm like, okay. And then we keep talking. And he's like, I got to go. And then at the end, finally, I'm like, okay. He goes, what time is it? I go, it's 11:40. He goes, well, fuck, they close in 20 minutes. I got to go right now. And I'm like, you did not care anything about like, hey, let's just talk, like, or whatever. Or if he has a beer there while we're talking, he's like, I don't want to drink it now. I gotta go so I can drink my beer. Dad, you can like anytime. Like I drink beer while I'm talking to you. Like, what the fuck? So yeah.
Your dad has known you your whole life, though, so he knows he needs a hard out to a conversation, or
That's
you'll
true.
fucking talk all day.
Well, it's funny, exactly.
Ripcord.
How dare you guys? So you're an asshole, I'm a talker, and Chip's a sexy talker. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I guess that's all we got.
Who's got the best gig? Chip, of course.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, Chip's like, I'll come in one time a week, talk, okay, and let
Yep.
Phillip do most of the talking, okay.
Yep.
No, my dad annoys me when he's like, I'm like, yeah, Dad.
This just became a therapy session.
It really has.
It did. So he goes, I need to go buy a mattress. I go, new mattresses are cheap. You can go buy you a new mattress. You don't need to go to Habitat for Humanity or whatever. Just get one. And he's like, well, how much are they? I go, I don't know, like 150. I go, I told you before. You never told me that. Yeah, I did. Motherfucker, no, you didn't. And I'm like, Dad, don't get angry. I'm telling you that, yes, I know that I told you. No, you never fucking told me. I go, Dad, I told you. Okay. But it's like, he can't even remember. Did I see that movie? Did I see The Town? Whatever. Anyway, end of therapy. So he was on the show and it was fun. But again, with my dad, I can only do short. Then I'm like, that's why I'm like, I'll call you once a week. I can't do too much with you because then it gets annoying and you get angry. So we did
Didn't your dad roll out in the middle of that episode and be like, after like 30 minutes, wasn't he like, oh, I'm done talking to you?
Here's
Go
what was
fuck
funny.
yourself.
My wife doesn't much care for my dad. And so I was like, I'm going to have him over. We're going to watch movies. She's like, while she's at work, she's like, get all your shit done in the 13 hours while I'm going to work. Said, okay, Dad, we're going to talk about 3 movies at a time, right? I go, we're going to watch Nevada Smith. We're going to watch Murphy's War. And then we're going to watch Once Upon a Time in the West, 3-hour movie I saved for the last movie. He's like, okay. So we put on the others. He's in it. And then all of a sudden it comes to Once Upon a Time in the West and he's like fading. And I'm thinking, we still got to record a fucking podcast right after this because does that work out? 3, 2, 2. Yeah. So then finally we're done with that. I go, fuck it. We're not doing Once Upon a Time in the West. Because I didn't even know that guy was with that guy. Where's Henry Fonda? Whatever. So then I'm like, fine, we'll do. So we did the podcast, but he was like half lost of like the facts and like, wait a minute, who said this? It was from a website that I found. Okay, and when did this happen? Oh my God. Okay, say it again. Oh my God, really?
Wow.
But yeah. Then Colleen and I did Killing Bonnie and Clyde episode, which was fun. It was Bonnie and Clyde and the Highwaymen. And then we did individual alien episodes. She was like, let's do some short alien episodes. And I'm like, okay. And we did all those. And that was fun. And a really fun one I did. So Jason knows Josh. You don't know Josh, but he's a German friend of ours that I was like, you want to be on the show? He goes, what movie do you want to do? I go, well, you're German and you've never seen Das Boot. Like, we should do that. And he's like, well, I don't know. And then I said something about on your list, it says Terminator 2. He's like, yeah, I've never seen it. I go, holy shit. Like, okay, we got to do Terminator 2. What do you have that you want to show me? He goes, have you ever seen Peter Jackson's Brain Dead? And I'm like, or Dead Alive. And I'm like, no, I haven't. He goes, oh, you need to see it. So I watch that. He watches that. We get on the show. He was like, that Terminator. I go, those were twins. Those were twins. Holy shit. I'm like, yeah. So it was amazing. And so that was fun. And then I had Jason on first time. So what was funny about me and Jason meeting, Chip, I think you know, who knows if the audience knows, but hey, we're trying to fill time here on our last episode. So I'm listening to those movie guys and they're talking about, oh, there's this guy from the podcast called Talking Poop. This guy, Jason Bromley, he's pretty funny, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, let me check this out. So I'm listening to his podcast, like, oh, that sounds fun. So I write him and I go, hey, man, if you ever want to do a podcast, like be on mine or I can be on yours, like I'm available. And I go, I don't know where you live, what your time is. And he goes, I live in Phoenix. And I'm like, what the fuck? I live in Phoenix. And he's like, I go, where do you live? He goes, I live on like the freeway in Union Hills. And I go, I fucking live on Northern and 19th Avenue. Holy shit.
Did we just become best friends?
I know.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that was super crazy though. I mean, what a weird fucking small world.
Yeah. So we did so first we did G.I. Joe on his, then we did tribute to Fred Ward. Before Fred Ward died, we did Remo Williams and Tremors. So rest in peace, Fred Ward. And what's funny that Jason told me last week is he doesn't even remember what we do. Like I remember what he does on his show. So I know that we won't do those movies because he's done them.
Yeah.
Although he said you guys should do the Crow. And I said, yeah, there's a Mezco Crow doll, $100, 12 inches. Looks really cool, but I don't think we're gonna be spending $109 that I found on Amazon. But anyway, it looks really cool. But like Jason will be on my show, and we did Goodfellas and what was that movie called? The Wolf of Wall Street. And he was like, and then he does Goodfellas on his show, and I go, don't you remember that we did Goodfellas? I go, because you were reading those facts like they were new to you. And he's like, nope. And I go, and then he did Willow on his show. I go, don't you remember we did Legend and Willow? Oh, we did? I knew it sounded familiar coming out of my mouth as I was speaking. And then, of course, I really enjoyed going through all those James Bond movies. And some of my solo shows that I really like. I don't know about you, Jason. It seems more of a pain for you to do a solo show.
I hate it. Yeah, I feel like such a dipshit. Although recalling all these stories, I feel like a dipshit too. So
that's all right. You made a movie and we haven't, so that's good. I need to. When you were here, Chip, we should have watched the Green Lantern, but I forgot.
It's okay. It's all right. Those
Jason's
are my heydays.
Green Lantern gets thrown out of a bar, eats a whole burrito from Filiberto's in one take, like the whole thing. Oh, it's
Jesus.
Because he's supposed to be a pig and an asshole, and then that rubbed off
weird,
on
like
him in
typecasting.
real life. Yeah, he's like, how can I be an asshole? And then, but then you become better. And then there was a scene at the end. Spoiler alert. He throw the ring into the water, and he has it. And the camera zooms into like him holding the ring in his hand, and I was like, how many takes did that take? He goes, we did in one. I go, motherfucker, really? Like, I was like, holy shit. Like, to me, it seemed like it glided across the water up to your back, but I know it was quicker than that, and it wasn't a glide.
It was crazy though. My friend did stand out on a frozen lake to get the shot from the water perspective. So that was pretty crazy. And then when that bouncer threw me up over the car, that was just the bouncer at the bar. I went in there and I was like, hey man, we're filming a movie. Would you mind kicking the shit out of me? And he's like, I would love to. And so he was just supposed to throw me out of the bar, but that was his car parked in front. And he's like, hey, what if I throw you over this car? And I was fucking, hey man, let's do that. Yeah. And then he lifted me up by my pinky finger and dislocated my pinky finger. Ouch. So for that like whole movie, I'm like, my hands all like this the whole time. Yeah.
Oh shit. Makes you fly better.
Yeah, it sure did.
Yeah.
Couldn't masturbate right for a month.
That's where you do the strange with the other hand, and then you're like, oh, it's like somebody else came in. It's like Phillip is talking to me to sleep.
I can't ever do that because I'm not ambidextrous. So when I masturbate with the wrong hand, it feels like Pee Wee Herman's jacking me off.
So you got like one big giant arm, and then underneath that sweater is one huge bicep, and then the other one's just like
this here's my jerking arm.
The other one's like a baby arm.
And he's my strong hand.
So I did a solo show of like Buster Keaton and Jackie Chan, and I did that Stars Born one, and I did the one that I'm really proud of is the Quentin Tarantino solo episode that I did, because that took a lot of work. And then the one that I have here written down is the Mank and Citizen Kane, that I went and saw Mank in the theater, wrote everything, all this stuff down, and then did it. And I was like, man, I'm proud. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, okay, I guess nobody cares. Yeah. So you're like, oh, well, at least I have it. And my favorite with you, Chip, my favorite with Jason, again, on his show, Raiders of the Lost Ark we did.
Yeah.
And we did a Batman one that was fun, 80-year Batman. And then we did the Ferris Bueller one was good that we did recently, and the other one was good, but Ferris Bueller was fun. So listen to those; those will make you laugh. Popcorn Promises. But my favorites with Chip were Ready Player One because he had never seen it. I was like, oh, he's gonna fucking dig it. You should read the book, and he's like, I'm not gonna read a fucking book. Fuck you. I'm writing my own book. Yeah. He's like, I'll read comics and I'll write my own book, but I'm not gonna read a book.
Hell no.
And then Dazed and Confused, which I used to think like, oh, it's a boring movie. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand it's like a hangout movie and there's more to it, and you're like, okay, this is cool, you know. And the fact that speaking of fathers, the fact that Matthew McConaughey's dad died the day before they did the scene in the football field. And then he's like, keep on living, Livin. And he's like, that was my dad. Like, and I'm like, oh, cool. Good that you have a good relationship with your dad. Everybody should read his book. His book was pretty good, his autobiography. The Kid, Chip had never seen The Kid, Charlie Chaplin. Have you seen it, Jason? No.
I had to watch it for film school,
Oh.
but I wouldn't watch it for fun, you fucking nerd.
It's only an hour. And Chip was like, that was really good. I liked it, except for the dream sequence. I think a lot of people are like, we didn't need the dream sequence. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
no.
And Chaplin, he had some problems talking about Bill Cosby. Chaplin was like, oh, this little 13, 14-year-old girl that's dancing around as an angel, I'm going to make her my wife. Like, okay. Then
Doing that Jerry Lee Lewis thing.
Exactly. Well, it's not his cousin, but yeah. True Romance, Hudson Hawk, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, and Dr. Detroit. So Dr. Detroit was not a good movie. Those are movies that you go, do these hold up? And then when we do them, because they're in my head and heart, and then I go, oh, this was no good. Yeah, and Buckaroo Banzai was fun because I had the walkthrough of it, so I could understand it. When you watch that movie, you're like, what the fuck is this movie about? When you read it laid out, you're like, oh, I get it. Now I want to read the books. I want to do all this. And then, like I told you, Jason, you need to do a Hudson Hawk because that's our highest listens is fucking Hudson Hawk.
Do you have the numbers on that? How many hits did you get on that?
What am I in? Namibia? I got a fly flying around me. Is that insulting to some people? Let me check.
That's like in Raiders when Belloc is talking and the fly fucking goes right in his mouth and he just keeps going.
Oh,
yep. That's true professional.
That's for sure. Hang on, Jason. Let me check. Let me slow the show down to check how many listens we have.
Oh, I'm sorry that you're doing a fucking retroactive show of how cool you are and you didn't write down your highest numbered episode.
Oh, how dare you make Chip laugh because you're right. I'm working on it. Hang on.
Do you not take toilet paper in when you go to take a shit?
Yeah, it's already in there. But when I'm doing a show that I don't think somebody specifically is going to say, what was that episode number? Then I'm like, oh shit. Like, you know.
Okay, well now I want to know, since we're talking about dirty butts, if you do run out of toilet paper, do you bite the bullet and call the wife, or do you walk out with a poopy butt to get toilet paper?
I haven't, but I might do like on Step Brothers and use the carpet down at my feet to wipe my ass. Or
well, we know everybody takes their phone with them.
Yeah.
So you just text and be like, hey, toss me some paper. Open the door, don't look at me. Don't
make eye contact.
Yeah, no eye contact. Just toss me the shit and close the door.
Yeah. No, but my wife will do that to me. Hello, I'm out of toilet paper. What's your fucking job to make sure that under my sink, and her bathroom is separate. So she has like the toilet closed off and then the sink. So you have to reach outside. And anyway, 700.
Did you text her back duvet?
Hop up on the sink.
Yeah. And that's what my second choice. That's what my second choice would be after the 788 for Hudson Hawk. That's what my second thing would be, to splash water on my ass or whatever, and try to do
shake
that
like a dog.
Maybe do like Kuwait and just wipe my ass with my left hand or something.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just start shaking with your right.
So, and then the other one that I'm proud of is Hell's Angels and Aviator. Because me, I'm ambidextrous, not like you. I don't have one big
Yeah,
bicep.
you can go either
and
way. I
yeah.
know.
Hell's Angels and the Aviator, which was fun because I put a lot of stuff into about Howard Hughes.
That fly's really pissing me off now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll try to stop
Jesus,
moving
that's
then.
distracting.
Yeah. I have no idea where he came from.
You
He
got
must have
nothing in
came
your
from
house.
out
How do
there.
you have one fly just like flying around?
I have because probably the back door is a little open and the fly came in from
The size of a
whatever.
bumblebee too. Jesus.
Da-na-na, and then I'll be like Money Pit. So anyway, I did the Howard Hughes thing.
That's on your fucking face. Ah. Yeah. Don't you have a pair of chopsticks or something? Fucking catch that fucker.
I know, right? I'm like, but now I think I got him, but he's not dead.
You let go, he's fucking out.
And I don't want to let him out, so I'm trying to.
I think you got him by the pecker, actually.
No, I want to check, but
Jesus.
Away. He's not there. Motherfucker.
You had nothing that whole time.
I would have held it forever and been like, I
that
got him.
Fucking fly just showed you what a dildo you are right to your face.
Oh shit. Oh, well,
awesome.
maybe I scared him. I think I scared him. My big muscles scared him away.
Yeah. This is good podcasting, boys. This
So
is good.
I know, right? Good audio. So the Aviator, everybody listen. A lot of people listen to the Aviator because Leo. Nobody listened to the Hell's Angels because they're like a movie from 1932 or 3. No, thank you.
Nope.
And then you can jump in anytime, Jason. With us, Chip, I loved Dirty Harry, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Cannonball Run, Lethal Weapon, Star Trek 2, The Asphalt Jungle. Have you seen The Asphalt Jungle, Jason?
Nope. Never even heard of it.
Yeah, I wrote down the Asphalt Jungle, Thief, Grand Hotel, Stagecoach, The Warriors, Great Escape, Atomic Blonde, and The Kid are all the ones that were really ones that I had not seen and you really wanted me to see, and that they were impactful. They were really good.
Yeah. See, Jason, The Kid is a good movie.
You're like, yes,
for
not
schoolwork.
good.
Yeah, for schoolwork, yes.
Yeah, for a report.
And then, of course, Chip was in town, and we went and saw The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent in the
That
theater
was a great,
together.
underrated movie.
That was fun. Oh yeah,
so good.
And Hell or High Water, Wind River. So have you've seen Bone Tomahawk, Jason?
Yeah, love that movie.
But I forgot the feeling that I got when I first watched that movie until Chip was like, "What the fuck? I'm almost nauseous." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's great that it worked for you the same way it worked for me. But also, I forgot to warn you that you might get a little nauseous when they get in the cave." So
yeah.
Have
you seen Terrifier? They one up that scene.
I saw the first one, but I haven't
the
seen
first
the second one. But yeah,
he hangs that girl upside down, uses her box as a miter box.
Yeah,
cuts her right in half while she's alive. Jesus.
Yeah. And then you go, well, what side of the head do I go? Do I go this way or do I go that way? He goes,
nope. Nobody thinks that except for you.
And then
so I'm picturing him stopping right there, going, what should I do?
What I'd probably do is cut from both sides, just cut the head off. Like,
I don't like that you thought about that.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right that it's me telling Joe because I'm thinking like, I think I can make some cool couches out of bones. Yeah. But no, it's a thing where I have these OCD things where my wife's like, she'll have a calendar up. Not that if I killed somebody, be OCD, who knows? But my wife has a calendar. We have a calendar on the fridge, and you mark off the days as she goes to work. And my thing is, okay, when we leave for work at 7 p.m, you do one hash across it. When I come back in the morning and she comes home, I do the other hash to make an X. When she takes that down to put, say, December up, I have to go find November to cross out the last day of November because she threw it away too early. She's like, you're fucking mental. Like, I need to cross them all off. So
I take it back. You're not a nerd. You're a deviant. Like there's something deeply wrong with you.
You might.
Something seriously
There's something
wrong.
wrong with you. Yeah. His nose is cold. And then I don't know, Jason, if you've ever seen 1976's King Kong.
Yes.
That was a really good. I forgot how good that movie was. It's actually good. I thought
it's
like,
legit. Yeah.
It'd be horrible. I did that
So
with
sad at the
with
end.
Dave from Movie Chatter Podcast. Yeah, exactly. Like the original, but you would call that homework from 32.
Yeah. That looked like somebody playing with Play-Doh. At
Yeah.
least the 76 version like had a little bit of reality.
And then I had Chip watch Atomic Blonde for the first time. He enjoyed it.
Good flick.
And Death Proof for the first time out of our Quentin Tarantino stuff.
Not a good flick, but cool.
least of all of them. Hang on, I wrote some down here. Most of those I mentioned were ones that you had never, that he had never seen, and that was a whole reason why I started the podcast. So
to make other people, to put your will on others and make them watch movies that they never fucking wanted to watch in their whole life.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, not an asshole like that. That's how an asshole says it. But somebody like me would say, I wanted to share my love of, let's say, Alfred Hitchcock, let's say Rope. And I go, oh my God, it was filmed this way and filmed that way. And someone goes, that sounds really good. Let me write that. I'm going to go look for it and go find it and watch it. And then maybe they comment. Nobody does. But maybe they comment and go, hey, man, thanks for sharing that movie. It was really good. Flies back, by the way.
Do you know that the definition of rapist is somebody that wants to put their sexual preferences onto an unwilling partner? That's what you're doing.
I'm a movie rapist.
You're a pod rapist.
A pod rapist. Well, now I got Chip to be my person that I rape. And I go, Chip, do you want to see? Let's do The Great Escape. He's like, I've never seen it. I go, oh, I'm so hard right now. Let's do it. And then we do it. Either watch a movie or sex. Yeah.
I suddenly became the gimp.
That's right.
Bring out the gimp.
That's right. Out of gimps transform. However, the ones I didn't care for much were Enemy at the Gates, The Legend of the Lone Ranger. Chip and I were like, oh, Legend of the Lone Ranger. I remember seeing that in 1980. It was good. And we are like, oof, no. The car, remember that from 77? Chip and I didn't do it, but I had my friend Alma on. I'm like, let's do possessed vehicles. So we did The Car and Maximum Overdrive. Oh, it's almost time for Jason. That's why he's checking his phone.
You don't know.
The Family Man.
That's a really good movie. What's wrong with you? Is your heart made out of shit?
It's okay. Yeah. But when we put it, me and Joe put it with It's a Wonderful Life. Like It's a Wonderful Life is way better.
They're the same movie.
You and Chip would say, do what?
They're the same movie.
I know, but
yeah,
I don't know. So I didn't much care for it. Maybe I'll watch it again just for you. No.
So you're basically saying that because it was up against that one, it sunk.
Yeah. So it wasn't a bad movie, but you watched it at a bad time.
But also it was one that was never on my radar until Joe was like, what should we do? And I'm like, well, maybe we'll put this with it. And then I'm like, and that was the problem for one, why Chip and I are kind of ending the podcast is because we would run into that. What's one that we really want to do? Well, let's do this one. Well, what's one that kind of would match with that? Let's do this one. And we just pick the second one to go with that one or try to fit them together. And then you're like, oh, this ain't working, you know.
Well, if you weren't such a masochist, you would just have one movie at a time, like a normal person.
Here's my thing, Jason. Like I've told you before, you're an asshole. For one, is that you do your show, you do one. So if I did one, then I'd be like your show. So I'm like,
but you started doing your show before my show, so that's not a good excuse.
I know. Well, I don't want to be like you now. So I'm like, I'll just do two together. That makes it unique for me, I think. But also, yes, it's the same. And that's why now this new podcast we're going to is just going to be one, and we're going to get no listens because they're movies that nobody.
Yeah, it's just one movie that nobody wants to hear about or watch themselves. And I think you guys have a perfect format for that.
How dare you? You see that? That means he hasn't even subscribed yet because he's like, not for me. Stir Crazy was not that good. Dr. Detroit was not that good. Every Which Way But Loose, Chip and I didn't like. Passenger 57, I thought I remembered it being good, but it was not. Like
Always bet on
like,
black.
Like Cliffhanger is still kind of horrible, but
No, Cliffhanger's amazing. God damn it.
I did Passenger 57 and Cliffhanger as a solo show, and Cliffhanger is way better. And then Boogie Nights, so I watched Boogie Nights
by yourself because you had to masturbate. I get it.
Then I remembered loving Boogie Nights, and you watch it now and
you're like, look at the size of his penis. And then you found out it was fake, and you were like, oh, fuck this movie.
I was standing there with my pants down, ready for the end, and then I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you want to pull yours out at the same time he pulled his out.
Yeah, and then I'm like, wait a minute, these don't match up.
Yeah, you had to sprinkle pepper on yours to make it sneeze so you could grab it.
That's right. That's a good one. And then Shocker, which was horrible.
Yeah. Especially when you're by yourself and someone gives you the shocker, you're like, where did that come from?
That's right. 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink.
Oh, is that how it goes? I always thought it was 3 in the stink and 1 in the pink. I've been doing it wrong all these years.
No wonder your wife is like, don't come to bed yet. Go ahead and do your podcast. I'll wait
That's why my neighbor calls me the gaper. That's weird.
That's right. You're like, I thought it was one fist in and the other fist somewhere else. Yeah. So those are my favorites. You have any that you liked us doing, Jason, before you leave?
See, like I said,
that's because it's almost an hour.
No, I just like them all. Like, you guys haven't done a bad episode, if you ask me. Even if I'm not interested in the movie, I just like hearing you guys talk. It's so soothing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll isolate you guys so that Chip comes out of one side of my car stereo and you come out of the other side. It's super fun. Yeah.
That's a good. When I first did the podcast, I accidentally forgot to move that, and so you'd hear one person coming out of here and one person coming out of here, and people are like, it's very disconcerting. Like, I don't get it.
Sucks when that happens.
And then Brant calls one day and he texts me and he goes, I don't know if it's in, like, I said, what do you think of the new theme? And he goes, it was okay, but everything you guys were talking really fast. And I'm like, are you on your iPhone? And he's like, yeah. I go, you can go to settings. You have it on 1 1/4. And he's like, oh shit. Yeah, I did. I didn't have it on 1. So it was like like Colleen listens to him that way because she gets a gist of it. And she's like, okay, I don't need to listen to it drawn out. So yeah.
I always liked when you would read my long-winded reviews.
Yes, they were always good.
You would read them just like I said them, which was weird because I do talk weird. I understand that. So, but you always like nailed the cadence and everything. So I really enjoyed hearing my words spoken through you.
Okay,
that was my favorite part of your show.
Thank you.
But also what I noticed, I was like, God damn, I'm a long-winded fuck. Like, I need to just shut the fuck up.
But I would rather have one of those than, we appreciate all the comments, but the ones that are like masterpiece, great, it was good, thumbs up,
18 thumbs up, and you always count how many fucking emojis, which drives me nuts. You're like, 5 thumbs up and 2 winky faces.
Listen, if I just go, and then he gave some thumbs up and a winky emoji to that guy, he's like, motherfucker, I hit that thing a bunch to make sure that you get across really that understood. I'm giving it a thumbs up. So I'm I need to give him props for doing everything.
And sometimes I feel like when you talk to Chip that you've woken Chip up for the first time, because you're like, Chip, are you ready for this? And he's like, yep, I'm ready and ready to go. And
that's like, how you imagine it.
Yeah. He's just like, oh fuck, it's my turn to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, so, I suddenly feel like this is like the Tonight Show. Is yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
But so yes, thank you, Jason. I'll let you go so Lauren doesn't have to come into the room. And
none of us want that.
Is there any? No, we don't, because then I'm like, I know I've done bad when she has to walk in and be like, is it done yet? And you're like, hang on a minute. And I'm like, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Well, you do want her to let him come out and play more often.
Right. So yeah,
if you fuck up once, it screws up the whole thing.
That is very true.
Exactly. And like a bad date, I tell her, I'm like, I text her like underneath the camera where he can't see.
Yeah.
I'm like, fucking come in the room because he fucking talking about G.I. Joe's again.
I fucking knew it. When I first met his wife, she's wearing a Jaws t-shirt. And I'm like, oh, you love Jaws? That's awesome. You wear movie shirts. My wife doesn't wear. And Jason's like, that's my shirt. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
she just
oh,
wears all my old shirts.
she's like, I have no idea who
She
Jaws
doesn't
is.
give a fuck. Yeah, no, not
She's
about
like
anything.
Jawas? No, Jaws. Whatever.
Yeah. So, well, I just want to say that it's been a privilege. I've enjoyed your show the entire time.
Thank you.
And I thank you for having me on. It's so gracious because, you know, we are a small podcast community and really we've all supported each other through our little podcasts and everything. And that's what makes it worth it, you know, is hearing back from you guys and also being a part of like making sure that like I'm supporting you guys and listening to you and giving shout outs on my podcast because that's what it's all about. So,
yeah, exactly. That's what I love, that it doesn't seem like anybody's competing. All the podcasters are like, cool, you know.
Yeah, it's just all brotherly love. So that's what I loved about it. And you and Joe took me in, even though I was a newbie and I talked all kinds of shit and you guys still love me.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. And I'm going to keep listening to your new podcast because
it's a lie. Did you see his nose grow? After what he just said about our shitty new podcast, and now he's like, I'm going to continue listening. And I'm like, no, you're going to pick and choose. If we do Rio Bravo, you might listen to that. But if we do like Rolling Thunder, maybe you'll listen to the first episode.
You didn't let me finish. I'm going to keep listening because I like the sound of Chip's voice, not because of your fucking bullshit.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Point taken. See if I ever come to your Comic-Cons again.
Sadly, I was not invited back.
Yeah.
No, that's a lie. I actually was invited back, but I moved to Washington. So
yeah.
You're gonna get now. You got to get on a flight if you want to come to Comic-Con and see me. So
yeah. All right, then we'll be there. When? All right.
All right. Good times, guys. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Tell Lauren and the kids I said hey.
I'm gonna tell her you called her a bitch.
Wow, I knew you would, but she won't. She won't believe you. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. So yeah, that was Jason. You got to meet him for the first time.
It was awesome.
So you have anything else before I get to Phil's film favorites? You have anything written down that you wanted to go through that we really didn't get to talk about much?
Well, I kind of wanted to say that I already brought up the ones that you had also reiterated on, are the ones that you really wanted me to see that I'd never seen before, which is awesome. But the whole thing is, the reason why I have this kind of written down this way is I have all those movies, but in essence, at the bottom here, I have Hateful Eight and I have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, when it came to Tarantino, I had kind of lost interest in him. Like, I think it was around Django that kind of something was going on around that time.
Now, do you think it was because you had got with the wife at that time and like she wasn't into the violence and stuff, and maybe you kind of went away? Or
I don't know, because I think even after that, like even watching trailers and stuff, my excitement wasn't there for any of it anymore. I was kind of like, whatever. So the good thing about this is that this all worked out, because the movies that you showed me that I'd never seen before, that really, were impactful. They were, good movies, and you could see, especially in the difference between decades, time frames, whatever, on how they were filmed. There were still, story was there. Like, it was really well done, no matter what style it was in, who did it.
Yeah.
It was just really awesome movies. So that's what's cool about this situation, is that then we come to Hateful Eight and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I'm loving those movies. They're Tarantino movies, and it brings me back. And now we're leading into our Tarantino podcast.
Yeah.
With movies that I've never seen.
Yeah.
From different decades, different time frames, different Tarantino growing up, what made him. Yeah. And it's perfect that this is leading into, the beginning, the end of this. The things that happen in the end of this podcast are really fuel for what's going on with the new podcast, and why going in that direction really works.
Yeah, I agree. It was the thing where, like me, I would rewatch like I'd rewatched them last year when Tim was like, I'm going to rewatch them because you guys did True Romance, made me want to watch all the thing. And I was like, well, now I want to rewatch them all. And then diving back into them, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna go into this for homework. It's like, cool. And like I said, it's a thing of when you tell your wife, you've had this happen, I've had it, or they say with your kids, sometimes you'll be like, hey kids, I want to show you this movie. And I don't have any kids, but when you try to show the kids Goonies, they're not in the same time. They're not they're like, this is kind of boring. This isn't funny to me, like whatever. And but when you or telling the wife like you got to see this and her falling asleep to Running Scared twice and me being like, okay, I'm done then trying to show her stuff. And it's a thing of when I'm in my personal relationship, you and I have a personal relationship, but when it's for the podcast, I can be like, oh, I wanted Chip to see this. This will be perfect. This lives in my head and heart. I want to share that love with Chip. And if he's all up for it, then we'll do it. And then you end up loving it. And I'm always thinking like, ooh, is he going to like Stagecoach? Is this too old? And you're like, oh, fucking John Wayne fucking killed it. Like, I see why he's a star.
Well, and the good thing about that too is that in general, for me, anybody who's listened and probably has heard, I'm very much a gamer. I'm very much, if I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose to play a video game over watching a movie now. That's my relaxed time. That's my chill time after work and stuff. So it's good that we have this podcast together and this outlet, because when there were those movies that you were like, oh, I really want you to see this, it's for the podcast. So it was, even though technically you could say it was homework or whatever, but I watched it. I was excited about it. It was something new. I hadn't seen it before, going in fresh. And that was what was cool about it. And that's what's going to really drive the new podcast, is that it's fresh because Tarantino grew up with it and we're generating it at random what we're going to watch next. And that would be exciting to go watch these.
And it's it'll be fresh for pretty much both of us. That's what I'm also excited about, is I haven't seen, like I had seen the first episode we did, which I'll play the trailer at the end or here in a little bit. But the first episode we did, Rolling Thunder, I said, oh, Chip, we're going to do this. I had seen it 3 or 4 times. And then Chip watched it and then we came on and Chip was like, holy shit. Like, and I'm like, oh, good. I picked a good one to start, because I was worried that you might be like, I don't know, it was 1977. Like, I'm not sure, but the next one coming up, that one looks good. It's called A Man to Respect, or Master's Touch. And so Kirk Douglas in it. But for you, the thing is, so when I first started this, like back in say 2010, when I started my original first podcast, it was going to be called My Cellular Heart in the Kitchen Sink. Then, because I wanted to talk about movies and everything else, so we could touch on movies, me and Sergio would always talk movies, and then we could go off on something else. After Sergio kept coming over every week or whatever, 2 weeks, then he was like, I got busy, I can't come over. I was like, okay, I'll have more people on, but nobody'd be available. So then I said, oh, I'm going to change it to It's Kind of a Funny Podcast. And then people were like, okay, Joe was like, I'll be on. And Sean was like, I'll be on. And you were like, I'll be on. And we did all that. But then it was a lot of times you and me, and or me and Sean, and none of the others were really available. And then finally it came to when I said, well, I need to do a movie podcast. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this movie podcast because I can do it by myself. I'm an only child. I'm used to talking to myself or just whatever. So I did that. And then at about season 4 was when you came on full time. It was like, it might've been season 3, whatever, because we ended last year together. But it was one where you were like, I'm good. I'll be your co-host. And it was like, cool. And then it was you and me. And if any co-hosts come in, like Tim was like, I really wanted to meet Chip. Like, I wish I could. Chip was here. And I'm like, oh, sorry. But it's the thing where it's not just like, oh, I need to fill the spot. It's like, then you come in and we're good where you can bring up Step Brothers, and I know what you're talking about, or you can mention, whatever, Transformers, and I get it. And also where I've told this before kind of to you, but at the end of our discussion, I would have wrap up written down on my script.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this is where we're supposed to wrap up. And what would happen naturally was you would jump in and be like, the thing about this movie is you can really tell, that, whatever, all the cast of characters in Stagecoach aren't one up in each other. They're all perfect.
Yeah.
And so that worked out. And when I've had other co-hosts on, they've all been good, but it's been like, oh, you're simpatico with me. Like that's what is really good. And that's why I enjoy that you're like, oh, we're doing this thing of these movies that I've never seen, this new podcast. Okay, I'm in it. And I was like, oh, sweet.
Let's do it.
So yeah, so you're important to me. If I didn't say it, for the end of the year, you're always important to me. We need to get some matching Arishkatagi tattoos.
We'll have
but
to
I
do
don't
that
know
next time I'm there.
Don't know if my wife would go for that on my forearm, So, but maybe we do it small. Anyway, that's a ninja thing from G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes, badass Snake Eyes. He keeps getting more badass as I read these. Anyway, you want to hear Phil's film favorite of the week?
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't know if you've seen it yet. You probably did. Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, 2022.
I was so close, but I was pretty much letting the wife run the show because she wanted to watch a lot of Christmas stuff.
Right.
I was saying, I really want to watch that, but I won't. So
it's the plot. Famed Southern detective Benoit Blanc. I don't know why all of a sudden I couldn't say it. When I see it, I'm like, wait, is that Benoist? Like Supergirl? Benoit Blanc travels to Greece for his latest case. So this has an all-star cast. There's really good writing in it. Tim was telling me, he's like, I watched it twice. He said the first time I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. Second time, he's like, it elevated. And I'm like, yeah, it's written really well. There's a part in there where Kate Hudson says something. She's a person that'll just talk without thinking. She's kind of a celebrity model kind of type. She'll talk without thinking. And Benoit Blanc is like, just because, you do this doesn't mean that you're free spirited. It means that, it was a way that he wrote it where it was like not her being like, oh, I'm a free thinker. No, you thought sweatshops were for sweatpants or whatever, So it's all that stuff. But it's really good. I gave it 4.5. I might have given it 5, but I started thinking about it. But maybe if I watched it a second time, then I would. But it's really good. It's on Netflix. And another one that might be interested for you is Pepsi. Have you seen that Pepsi documentary on Netflix? It's called Where's My Jet? So remember back in like 95, they had Pepsi points, just like Marlboro points.
Oh, yeah.
And on the commercial, they had a Harrier at the end of the commercial land.
Yeah.
And the kid is in it and he gets out and it says underneath 7 million points, Harrier jet. Everything else was like sunglasses, 100 points, jacket, 500 points. And this one was 7 million points, Harrier jet. It was a joke. Yeah. But underneath there was no fine print. No nothing. Yeah. So all of a sudden this kid was like, wait a minute, is that real? And then he's like, well, I'm gonna put him to it. So he starts buying all this Pepsi. And then they realize I have to drink 190 Pepsis a day to make 7 million points.
Damn.
So then he talks to a backer, his friend who's going to back him, who's rich. And then his friend's like, oh, okay. And then then they end up giving it up because it's not going to work. It's too much money to say. Then they find a thing where you can buy a point for 10 cents for a point. So then he calculates it. He's like, so for $700,000, we can get $7 million Harrier jet or a $32 million Harrier jet for 7 million points. So they go and try it. And Pepsi's like, it was a joke. And it was like, and even in the little brochure, it didn't have Harrier jet on there.
Yeah.
So
of course.
they sent in their points, but wrote a little square and wrote Harrier jet and sent it. what they got back was like 2 coupons saying like, thanks, here's for 2 cases of Pepsi, and here's your check back. And he's like, no, I want the Harrier jet. And they're like, and he had done all this research. Can I own a Harrier jet? Can a civilian? And they were like, yeah, if it doesn't, Pentagon was like, yeah, if it doesn't have any missiles or things on it. So anyway, it's a 4-part documentary, but it's really cool of like him, fighting fighting Pepsi, trying to get it. So, but that's on Netflix.
I think at that point, though, I would have been like, okay, well, if you're not going to give me the Harrier jet, then give me the price, like the money that you would have spent for a Harrier jet.
Well, so they didn't go that far. They offer him $1 million in a settlement. Like he's across from the guys. They're like, how about $1 million? And he's like, and he's thinking about it. And they're like, look, this is as close as you're going to get. But that backer of his was like, this is your deal, whatever you want to do. And he's like, nope, I want the jet. So he comes back, says no money. They go, what do you want? He's like, I want the jet. They go, no, really? What do you? He goes, I want the jet. Like he was going to either learn to fly or pay for it to be at air shows and get money from air shows or whatever. And but anyway, it's a good thing. I'll tell you about it off air.
Cool.
Because I don't think you're gonna watch it. I don't think you have time for 4 episodes. Are you we gonna end this now? Are you ready to end this? Forever and ever? So Jason, last week, Jason said that your voice was sexy, but also he was saying like, well, I said, Chip said, no, let's just end it. And he goes, but that's your baby. And I go, that's how I felt. I was like, but this is my baby. I want to keep continuing it. And I said, so part of me goes, man, I'm going to end it. That means I can't go back to YouTube and put on, more things. And I'm like, go ahead. What are we going to say?
Let me explain. I was going to say something when you were talking when he was on about the evolution of it. Now we went from starting the podcast, it becoming it's kind of funny podcast, right?
Right.
Then eventually it evolved because everybody was telling you, well, duh, why aren't you doing movies? It's what you love. It's your passion.
Yeah.
So we go into the movies, right? For me, it isn't so much that you're ending, it's evolving again into a more laser focused, precise podcast. Like it went from being kind of a jumble of comedy, talking about movies, whatever, to comedy, kind of more comedy and talking about news, about, crazy things that have happened in the world, to all of a sudden going straight into, you know what? I love movies, head and heart. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And now it's laser focus into what it needs to be.
Yes.
It's the evolution. It's growing.
Yes, I agree. And but also I've been doing a lot of Quentin research, like not only listening to video archives. I picked up a new movie that I picked it up, meaning in my head, of something that he mentioned on Video Archives podcast. He mentioned a guy who was in Frankenstein, the True Story in like 72 or something, whenever it was. And Roger Avery was like, oh yeah, Frankenstein, True Story. That was like really good. And they both about the same time or something said, it's the best Frankenstein movie ever. And I was like, oh my God. So I went and I found it on wherever I found it, YouTube or somewhere. And I watched it and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put this on the list. Like this is good. But also the thing of, then I've had dreams. I had a dream where it's that thing, don't meet your heroes because then they might fail you or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a dream that I had of I met Quentin Tarantino, but he had killed somebody and he's trying to cover it up. And I'm like, what's going on?
Wow.
And then this morning I was watching who's that guy? Bill Maher. Bill Maher has a YouTube channel that's like After Dark type thing where after he has his people on, then he'll call them to the back to his like little bat cave in his backyard and they'll do an interview.
Oh, okay.
But it's more laid back. They're drinking, whatever. So he had Quentin on before and I listened to some of that. But then this time he had Judd Apatow on, and then Quentin was like in the wings waiting or something. And Quentin just shows up and is like, I'll hang out with you and Judd. And so they sit down and they hang out and they're talking. So I watched that whole thing and it wasn't much. With them was like 30 minutes and then the rest was talking to somebody else. But so I listened to that. And then last night I had a dream where we're at a library. And this is because the wife and I were making a joke about I think Glass Onion or something that we were watching. It had a library in it, and I'm like, oh, I go, that's called a library, honey. Like I'm making jokes, and she's like, what are those? And I go, those are books, you know, and we're making jokes. And so then all of a sudden I had this dream that I walked in with Quentin Tarantino into a library, and I find this Quentin biography, and he picks it up. It's like a blue book, and he picks it up, and it's written by somebody, you know, Claire Danvers, I don't know, something. And he goes, oh, look. And I go, oh yeah, your biography. I said, I haven't read it. Is it any good? Is it truthful? And he's like, yeah, it's good. He goes, and he goes to put it away. He goes, oh, well, you should read it. And I'm like, okay. And so he like gives it to me. And then we're walking, and then he's talking about his other favorite books. Now, this is all because that I found out from Jason on the last week's episode what those 8 episodes that he wrote for his TV show that's going to be coming out is Justified. So Justified was a show with Timothy Oliphant on it, and it was a book by Elmore Leonard originally. And on Video Archives one time, he was talking about, I read this really good book, Justified, you know, and he's like, and it was really good. I think it was Video Archive, wherever it was. But anyway, he was like, it's really good. If that was made into an episode, that would be cool. And then all of a sudden, when he's on Bert Kreischer or whatever's episode or podcast thing, he's like, yeah, these are the 8 episodes I'm doing, but I won't tell you what. And then Jason said, now it's come out that it's that Justified book that he's doing 8 episodes. And I'm like, cool. So part of it was me being like, what books do you like? Me thinking about him, about that book, that I got to get that book. Me thinking about, I haven't even finished reading Cinema Speculations yet. You know, all those, and me thinking about, oh, what would I say to him if I met him or whatever kind of things, you know, and not, as you and I said, not in a, you're a god, you're a whatever, you know, just a, you know, regular thing. But people that have heard that met him are like, you know, he's nice and very cool and all that good stuff. And the pseudo sponsors for our show that we're going to be doing, Grindhouse Database, they got some free shit given to them by Video Archives, sent them like some swag. And I was like, oh man, how'd you do that? He goes, it was a surprise to me. He goes, I never get anything for free. Peter's like, all of a sudden I open the mail and there's all this stuff. And I'm like, cool. Like, how do they? And I'm like, yeah, how do they know about you? And, you know, probably, I don't know about if Spaghetti Western Database got anything, but it's very cool.
Nice.
But anyway, that's our show. So go to Making Tarantino, the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe. Our first episode will be out on January 20th, 2023. And then every week after, here is a trailer for our first episode.
You don't have to know how to make a movie. If you truly love cinema with all your heart and with enough passion, you can't help but make a good movie.
Welcome to Making Tarantino, the podcast. This is a podcast where me, Phillip Duke, and my cousin Chip watch and discuss a list of movies that Quentin Tarantino recommends and see if they've influenced his work. Our first episode is Rolling Thunder from 1977, starring William Devane, Tommy Lee Jones, and Linda Haynes. This is one of Tarantino's favorite revenge movies. He has said that he saw it on a double feature with Enter the Dragon, and it's better than Enter the Dragon. Here are some clips from our first episode. Hopefully you like it. And it's like, yeah, that's what makes it good. Like, it's realistic. Like, he's fucking throwing tables at the guy. Yeah. Fucking, you know, you're like, I think he's going to lose. Like, holy shit. Like, he came in with piss and vinegar and then starts getting his ass kicked.
It was also very much a play of, this is what I went through. Don't think that you're a threat to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be. Yeah. 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 And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to kill a bunch of people or something. You're like, holy fuck.
But the one thing that we did skip a little bit is that the boyfriend of the wife and
Oh,
died.
yeah, fuck. So, yeah. So hopefully you will join us on January 20th, 2023 as we begin to go through a list of movies that Tarantino has recommended and that may have had a part in making Tarantino. That's it. It's been a hell of a run. Thanks everyone for listening. I can't wait for this new podcast. It's exciting because on that one, it's going to be loosey goosey. We're not going to read a walkthrough. We're just going to go off the top of our brains of like, oh yeah, what happened then? Like what you'll hear on that, what you heard on that trailer was Chip being like, we forgot about the boyfriend. And I'm like, oh fuck yeah, awesome. So yeah, it's very cool. And then I had my dad watch that movie recently, watch Rolling Thunder. And he was like, it was good, but who did he kill at the end? I didn't make any sense of. I go, that was James Best. Like he's right there. Like spoiler alert. He's like, whatever. Certain movies stick with you. They stay in your head and heart forever. So from all of us at My Sailor Heart, keep watching movies. You have anything to say, Chip? Any final words for this podcast?
See everybody at the new podcast.
Onward and upward. You know it. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.